Pahoua Yang Hoffman, Senior Vice President for Community Impact at the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation. And I'm sitting here today with Paul Williams, outgoing chair of the Fr. Bigelow Foundation, and the incoming chair, Terri Thao. Welcome, both of you. So Terri and Paul, for those who don't know much about the Fr. Bigelow Foundation, can you tell us a little bit more about the foundation and its mission and goals?
We believe that the best ideas are out in the community. And our job is to get behind great ideas and, more importantly, to get behind great people. We certainly are a grant maker. That's what we do. We move resources out into the community. But I think we're also a little bit of a venture philanthropist, so to speak, looking for kind of great ideas and also helping the community drive some ideas kind of up to scale.
What were some grants or programs that stand out for you as highlights from 2019?
I think one grant in particular that I was really just thrilled to support was supporting Lead MN, which was a student association through MnState. And it was engaging them to participate in civic activities, right? And in particular, to host a summit around the census, which is extremely important because we all know young people tend to be undercounted. In addition to that, the way they're counted might be kind of different because they might not be living at home with their families. And so that's a really critical population that our funding could support.
I know that you are really proud of the Connected MN work. Can you tell us a little bit about that initiative and why it was important to support it?
Well, as we know, what the pandemic highlighted was that the disparities that existed before, particularly the racial disparities, were even more exacerbated because of the pandemic. And they were no more exacerbated than especially with digital equity and digital inequity issues. And so Bigelow was really proud to support the Partnership for Connected Minnesota, which is a public-private partnership that's bringing more tech devices and internet access to students across the state.
That's great, Terri. How about you, Paul?
The Linking Leaders work that we started several years ago that really emerged out of a Bigelow retreat session where we really kind of came across this notion of how are we building leadership in communities of color and more importantly, how are we linking that leadership? Because underneath all of the different strategies in our communities, are our leaders, and especially emerging younger leaders, and probably upwards of almost 10% of our total grant-making resources go to that. We think that's a long-term bet that will pay off, tenfold in the years to come.
Tell me more about mission investing.
We really looked hard at what do we do with our corpus, with our endowment, basically, and how is that invested, and are there smart ways to invest those dollars that can have a double bottom line impact? And so can we invest in places that produce other related social good and social good outcomes at the same time that we still get a return?
I don't know that any of us could have prepared for the year we had in 2020. But what has changed at the foundation in responding to COVID, and how do you think about grant making post-COVID?
I think the way we've always operated is to be responsive, but also to be in partnership. So when initiatives like the Minnesota Council on Foundations Disaster Relief Fund came, we immediately put money into supporting doing COVID relief, because what we knew was that our nonprofits were going to be slammed as they were with requests for funding because of the response. And right after the uprising, we also invested money quickly into a fund that was helping rebuild a lot of the businesses that had been impacted by the uprising too.
You mentioned the uprising, Terri. We certainly talk about 2020 without talking about the killing of George Floyd. Do you think this event will have an impact on the way that we do our work at the Fr. Bigelow Foundation?
Philanthropy's role in responding to that, I think, is incredibly important. The disparities that underlie George Floyd's killing, economic disparities, poor healthcare outcomes, poor educational outcomes in communities of color in particular, those issues all were magnified. And so one of the things that I think we've talked about a bit, and I've certainly been talking about, is how we rebuild and how we do the work going forward is as important as what the work actually is. How do we build community capacity to take care of itself is one of the important learnings that I think the philanthropic sector needs to really pay attention to going forward.
I don't know what you haven't done, Paul. You've held almost every position in every seat, from deputy mayor to being a program officer at the foundation and being on the board and board chair. What advice do you have for people out in the community that make an impact?
Well, you got to show up. And I think in that engagement and in that showing up are the roots of some different kinds of working together. And it's about community voice. And we're certainly hearing community voice. You cannot build strong communities and vibrant communities without community voice.
So, Paul, you've known Terri for a long time. And we know that Terri Thao is going to transition into the board chair next year. Can you share with us, so that she can hear it too, why you think she would make an excellent board chair next year?
Well, I think, one, Terri, I think you are just sharp as a tack. And in all the years that we've worked together, you've always brought that rigor and real thoughtfulness to your work. Your strength in kind of balancing these the tensions, holding the tension and holding these different multiple kind of solutions, ideas, I think that is a skill set that I think you'll absolutely bring to this role. And I also think you're a lot nicer than I am, so you'll do great.
Well, Paul, I am really grateful for your leadership. I'm really grateful of the way you've included me in a lot of the decisions and in the whole process. I'm extremely honored to be stepping into the role of being chair next year. Certainly we have our challenges ahead of us here in the East Metro, but I am really, I'm really thrilled to be a part of this, to be supporting the amazing work that our communities are doing and our nonprofits are doing day in and day out, to respond to the needs that are happening on the ground. I want my kids to come back, and I want my grandkids to be raised here in St. Paul. It's a wonderful community to be in. And I think that's why so many people come and stay. And that's why I think we're able to bring folks here. But I also want to make investments in the people who are here, who are not always, who are on the margins too.
Well, thank you, Paul. And thank you, Terri, for both of you showing up for our community, showing up for the FR Bigelow. And to staff, again, we want to thank you for your service to this board.